Hello and welcome to our series of Creative Entrepreneurship webinars. My name is Gillian Easson'un and I will be your facilitator for this webinar. This series of webinars is part of Inspire, a project funded by the European Union to support the development of an effective policy framework for the vibrant creative economy in Turkey. The action is implemented by GIZ, the German Development Agency, to build the capacity of the Ministry of Technology and Industry and the development agencies in Istanbul and Izmir. So it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I'm following on from my colleague Lindsay Smith, and I'm going to talk through the next part of the webinar session. But just to remind you of the overview of the webinar series, here we have that. So you covered designing your business part 1 with Lindsay. I'm going to cover designing your business part 2, and it's part of a 5-part series. And although this webinar is about 45 minutes long, there is well over 2 hours worth of content that you can do at your own leisure. So now that we've focused on some of the core aspects of either starting or refreshing your business or practice, you've considered your business's vision, your mission, your values, your theory of change, and you've considered how to measure your impact. Next, we're going to get more creative and work on the very practical steps to achieving that ultimate vision and your ambitions. So we're going to start with an activity called visioning. As I said, it's a really creative activity to start with. Yes, we've covered the vision of your business, but it's also crucial to look at your own personal vision and what success looks like to you. I find this activity a really powerful tool, and it's actually long been part of elite sports, so sports people use it. So sports professionals, Olympians use it as a way to visualize their successes and their wins, whether that be scoring a goal or getting over the line quickest. I've actually heard that sports psychologists also help sports professionals to create imagery scripts where they imagine themselves on that racetrack, feeling the wind behind their neck, using all their senses to visualize the win that they're striving for. It really helps to ground people and think very positively about what you're striving to achieve. So, for you, as an entrepreneur, it's a really powerful tool, as you can see here. It's a powerful, fast and creative activity to imagine and visualize the success of your future business. So what to do is you pick a time frame in the future, for example, 5 years in the future, and then you can create a news headline for a relevant publication and include an image representing the success of your business. And as it says here, you can pin it up somewhere to refer to and clarify your goals and keep you on track. So for you, it could be the front cover of a trade magazine, a newspaper headline. It could be visualizing your future product or service, the packaging, and imagining this on the shelves of a particular online or physical store. It could be meeting a particular person or company that really shows and demonstrates that you've made it. Here, as an example, I've mocked up a version of the front cover of Time magazine, which would be lovely to be featured on the front cover of, for a creative network organization navigating the current landscape that it feels like we're doomed because of artificial intelligence. So I say we're not. So this headline reflects that. It says, the creative revolution is finally here, and guess what? You, not AI, is its future. Now, I've known creative entrepreneurs who have completed this activity, the visioning activity, and then printed out their future vision in their studio or in their office. I've heard of several examples of this happening. So whilst it seems maybe a very creative and kind of soft activity, it can create real hard impacts. So for one creative entrepreneur, I know that they visualized their product in a really well-known design store. And one day, about 5 years later, I actually got an email from them and they sent me a photo of themselves with their product in that particular store. I was absolutely delighted to see this. And I think it really shows that, dreams do come true, but with some time and effort spent on visualizing them and then, of course, making them happen. So that's one activity that I would highly recommend that you do. And please pin it up and please keep us posted as it happens. I'm going to speak about some other prototyping tools and future forecasting tools and design tools. I'm from a design and innovation background. I trained in product design, but I really value design tools. I think they're really valuable to setting up a creative enterprise, which I have done myself and used a number of these tools. So prototyping is a really powerful way of being in the future, being present in the future, having that mindset. And it's really important to the visioning process before we drill down to the practical details. So using design tools like the one we're going to cover, these ones we're going to cover today, can be really powerful for demonstrating your business ideas to potential investors, funders, customers, users. So visualizing the future through prototyping ideas is really valuable, as I said. Atolia, who Lindsay referenced in our last webinar, use a number of these tools to support their clients, like with this project, Area 2071. So clearly none of us know what the future will look like in this particular year, but they used it to create a compelling mission of reconnecting a disconnected neighborhood, as you can see here. I'm not going to read it out for word, but they were able to create a powerful visualization of what future spaces that better excite and engage communities could look like. And it encourages people to get really excited about what the future can look like, particularly in these times where it can be challenging to think about what the future might look like. But prototyping is a really valuable way of doing that. So I would strongly recommend that you do that. But I would also say that you don't have to have really, you don't have to spend lots of money on this, on prototyping. The important thing about prototyping is that you can do it with cardboard, for example. You can use really practical, low expense materials to mock up your ideas and test them out in the real world. And cardboard prototyping is really valuable. Failing fast, failing often, failing cheap is the way to go. Always ensuring that you're using a critical thinking mindset as well. So you're not just throwing away ideas because they don't seem the best route forward or the easiest or the cheapest. But it's a really good way of quickly assessing the viability of ideas to review and refine your plans. And you can use it to prototype test a customer's journey. So really explore if you're giving the customer what they need when they need it. So you can do it on a small scale using things like the little character here in the picture. Or I've seen cardboard prototyping done at a giant scale where you walk through rooms and it allows you to experience what that future business idea might be like to experience. So that is cardboard prototyping. I just wanted to give you that tool if you've not come across it before. It's part of what I would term sort of service design tools, which we'll link to, of course, in the webinar guide. I also wanted to touch on while we're on this that, yeah, there are a suite of readily available design tools out there that I would really recommend tapping into. The Design Council's Double Diamond is a really popular tool. It's, as it says here, a visual representation of the design and innovation process. And it's a simple way to describe the steps taken in any design and innovation project, which is your business idea or refreshing your current business or your cultural organization. And what the different components of the diamond allow you to do is they're discover, define, develop, and deliver. So they're the stages of the design process. And it really helps you interrogate following some prototyping, following your visioning, your prototyping, really helps you interrogate your business idea. Rather than just simply assume what the problem is, it enables you to really unpick what the real challenge is that you're trying to address through to delivering your business idea, testing it out in different solutions at small scale, and rejecting those ideas that don't work and improving the ones that will to get to your final outcome. So as I say, I just wanted to introduce that as a concept and a framework that you might find useful as you develop your business idea. I think a number of us creative entrepreneurs are really visual people. And what I've learned over my time as I employ a staff team, a small staff team, is that I always thought I was overtaking with drawing out visual diagrams and things in team meetings. But what I've realized through feedback from my team is that that really helps people get on board with ideas, see them really quickly, interrogate them, question me about things. So I really value these tools, and I hope you find some useful as well. So we're going to move on to blueprinting. Already in this session, we've explored what our future vision looks like for ourselves. We've looked at the rapid ways to test our ideas and our assumptions. We have a design and innovation framework in the double diamond that we could use if we want to. Next, we're going to get super practical to bring our plans to reality. And we're going to use a tool called blueprinting to do that. So it takes its name from architectural blueprints. It truly is what lies at the foundation of sketching and developing our plans and remaining that thing that we can refer back to at all times and go, yes, this is what we're doing. So the first step in that process is to get a big sheet of paper or a wall, whatever suits, and write down your goal at the end. And I say at the end, I should say on something like a sticky. I know these are very well used in the world of entrepreneurship and with good reason. Here I've included an example, but I'm just going to talk through the steps here. So blueprinting is a practical activity to keep you on track towards business milestones and achieve your future evidence that you've already worked on. The first step in the activity is to set a particular goal within a time frame, e.g., run an event or sell your first product. As I say, you write that down on a sticky, and then next, your job is to map out all the individual steps required to reach that particular goal using brief, active descriptions. So I would say not just write the word marketing, for example, but really articulate what you mean by that. Is it print off leaflets to hand out, or is it to set up an online system that enables you to market more effectively to your customer demographic? Really be descriptive on these small little post-it notes. That'll really help clarify what you need to do to get to your ultimate goal. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of things within this particular example. So this was the first time I'd ever run a large-scale event, and my goal was to have 100 happy people attend, really. Run a successful event with 100 people there in attendance. I have to say, looking back now, I think it was more like 200 people attended, but this was a really valuable tool for that process. So it includes things like write the press release, rent the audio-visual equipment, set up the event, booking system for the event, a number of activities that are required. And it really helps unpack a final outcome. So much so that sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but I'm a big believer in breaking things down into small, manageable steps. So using this is a good, straightforward, practical way to do that. And we still use it today in our team. So I run a small creative network organization, Creative Dundee, and we use it all the time as a team. As I said, it's a really good way, visual tools are really good ways of getting full teams, boards, your customers, your audiences on board with what you want to achieve. So that's another example there. And I want to now speak. So I would suggest setting out about, well, you can set a whole day to do this, but really you could do this within an hour, I would say, mapping your goal that you really want to achieve and working towards that. And then you can invite, as I say, your team members, your fellow directors, your core audience or customers to come and help add in or question why you've written those particular things. And the good thing about using sticky notes is that you can move them around, of course. You can also use this to turn into your kind of activity plan. So you can type it up, and I've done that. I do that a lot, actually. I use this just as the first sketch, the blueprint, to then turn into something more substantial, for example, for within a business plan. So next we're going to move on to why that's important. This next tool is financial planning. It connects to our blueprint. Of course, everything does within our business. And so I'm going to start with our blueprint again. So here's an example of a blueprint that has been typed up. What you can do in terms of how to translate that to financial planning is you can begin to kind of cost your work and cost the resources required. So again, I'm just going to read out the steps here so that we're really getting that spot on. So you can consider the resources and the costs at the various points of your activities across your blueprint. I would add those in. You might have seen already on the last one, there we go, those little yellow ones have money in, money out, etc. And so as I say, I use this a lot as a way of costing where the money is flowing in and out, and resources, where the resources required. As it says here, do you require additional resources such as staff or venues? And you may need to do your own research at this point. That would be absolutely sensible to do, because you can't just estimate costs in there. You have to really clarify what those costs are. So again, spending a bit of time at this stage will be really valuable for your long-term business success. Okay, so yep, having that ultimate goal within this example is an online course being launched. And at the various points, you can see there's facilitator with a price against it. There's the different resources that are going to be required at the different stages of that overall blueprint. How that then connects to financial planning is the next point on our journey today. So there are a range of tools and templates available online which really help to support financial planning and budgeting and cash flow forecasting. And they really help assess how your money will flow in and flow out of your business. So here you can see this example. It's from Nesta's Creative Enterprise Toolkit, which shows the money going in and the money coming out. And in the middle there is your net operating budget. Yeah. So we are going to spend a bit of time on this. And I've not included completed examples here because I do think it's really important that you do this research yourself. And it is, of course, different from country to country in terms of tax systems and legal obligations. But as I say, there's lots available online that you can find to help with this process and make it a more manageable process and enjoyable, let's face it. Now, I think it's important to say that I'm not particularly financially savvy. I did not enjoy maths or arithmetic at school. I was perhaps quite a classic case of being a creative. I was switched on, but I just did not enjoy the way that maths was taught at school. And I think a number of us are that way inclined. But I I now have a very different relationship with numbers. I was once told I was scared of numbers, and I'm now managing quite substantial budgets every day. And sometimes they do feel like they overwhelm me, but I just break it down into small steps and think about how it connects with my vision of my business. So, in terms of planning your kind of cash flow plan, I've just been thinking about some sort of top tips that I would pass on. Um, it's really important, obviously, to prioritize the essentials that you know that you need to pay out. So those fixed costs, like rent, like supplies, like professional services that you need, whether that be particular online services or whether that be things like an accountant, think about what your fixed costs are. And then think about the variable costs as well. So the things that might come up, you might need that new laptop or that bit of kit to do something. You have to kind of allow for those things. And certainly in my first year of financial planning, it was a bit like trying to work out from scratch. There's not one template that will fit your business, unfortunately. I wish there was. So yeah, it's really important to do a bit of, I don't know, worst case scenario planning as well as hoping for the optimistic view. But just thinking about making sure that you um, have a bit of a surplus so that you can spend if you need to, say, fix, I don't know, a roof. Hopefully not, but you know, you have to be mindful of those variable costs. In terms of estimating your revenue, the income into the organization, that can be challenging at first. If you've got past experience, then you can do that more easily. If you're starting from scratch, again, that's going to be trying to work out, you know, given what your informed research has given you, is trying to work out and calculate that. And you'll have the chance to refine that as you go in the years ahead. You might need to identify seasonal trends. So, for example, I know that many creative businesses, particularly those that produce either crafts or design work, they perhaps are most busy in the run up to the end of the year. Certainly in the UK, where there's Christmas markets or people have their financial years towards December, then I find a lot of my friends and colleagues are really busy in the kind of October to December months. And then it'll be quieter from maybe January to March at the start of the new calendar year. So I think identifying if your particular sector, and again, this will vary from creative sector to sector, you will have seasonal trends potentially. And it's really important to look at when your income might fluctuate, when it might be up, when it might be down, so that you can pinpoint high and low income periods. And my next tip would be maintaining that buffer. So I did say earlier about thinking about your variable costs. So having a buffer, so having some additional operating expense can be really valuable. Again, hugely challenging when you're starting out. I know this all too well. But as you progress as a business, it is important to have operating expenses just in case of any kind of unforeseen incidents. So having sort of 3 months of operating expenses in future is something to work towards. The next would be evaluating your assets and your liabilities. So taking a look at what kind of savings, what equipment you have, what intellectual property you need to invest in, and think about any loans or credit card balances that your company might have as well. And just making sure that you know this information and you have it in front of you. Then next, planning for taxes and legal obligations. So understanding your own particular tax requirements, researching any deductions that you need to pay, And then my kind of final top tip is, if at all possible and if needed, then do try and bring in professional support if you can. So an expert that's familiar with the creative industries, say for example, an accountant, can be really worth its weight in future income and helps minimize any liabilities to stay compliant with your particular system. So I think doing all this can really help with, well, diversifying your future income streams. So it can actually help unlock where passive income streams might lie. So you might have particular views about what your business can achieve in terms of bringing in income. But by doing activities like this, so looking at creating your own cash flow projection template, can help explore if there's any other alternative income sources that you might be missing. And likewise, speaking to peers and colleagues and experts can really help to unlock that as well. And by doing this, by knowing where you stand in terms of your income and your expenditure, your money in, your money out, it's just those words. There's lots of jargon, unfortunately. But by doing this, it really helps you to monitor and adjust your costs. You can review your financial reports monthly or quarterly, track progress, adjust your goals, adapt to changing market conditions. Overall, it's about the sustainability and growth of your business. And there's lots of online tools. You know, I use one that's an online software platform, a financial platform, which means that I can log in and look at my budget, just check my profit and loss, check my cash flow projections, but also it means that my fellow directors on my board can do that as well. And my accountant also has access to that account as well. So it ensures we're really transparent and we can clearly communicate where we stand financially if anyone ever asks. And ultimately, yeah, it really will help if you kind of understand your cash flow and your financial projections better, then it'll help you create a more accurate budget and price point for your services and or products effectively. So that is financial planning. It's easier when you get started, I would say. So in this session, we've already covered our vision, we've covered our blueprint, we've covered our financial planning, and next we're going to come to business planning. And it's certainly last, but certainly not least, because it is one of the most important components of your business refreshing or starting up. And I'm going to talk through an example from the business model canvas. And again, all of these tools and activities will be included in the webinar accompanying guide. So the business model canvas is a strategic tool used to design, analyze, and refine business models. On business planning as a whole, I would say, as it says here, there's no one fixed approach to business planning, just like financial planning, unfortunately. It can feel overwhelming also to think about our business plan. But business plans are simply what we've already been doing. So we've already been doing very practical planning techniques. We've been using those. So it's just simply another of those planning techniques. All business plans do tend to have similar content and headers, so that's good. And you, again, can research what they are and what's the most appropriate format for you. However, as we're covering within these 5 webinars, there are contents that are across the board, they're included within business plans. And some of those include the vision, mission, and values, your aims and objectives, your finances, and the resources required to fulfill your business. So the business model canvas is a useful way for developing your thinking further in advance of say, writing or refreshing your current business plan. So I'm going to touch on some of these key aspects. I'm not going to go through the template word for word, but I am going to talk through 5 of what I would say are the kind of key aspects of the business model canvas. So again, it's another of these design tools that you can download the template for free, and you can use that to kind of complete at your own time. And I would say that, again, giving yourself a couple of hours on this to fill in and then think about how you progress with peers and colleagues or customers is a really important way. Thinking back to the double design diamond process, where you start with your potential challenge, you spend some time thinking about that yourself, then you go out to people. So they call it convergence and divergence. So you kind of spend some time on your own, then you go out to others, and then you come back with new knowledge, spend more time on your own, go back out, come back in. So it's a similar process with the business model canvas. So I would say I'm going to pick on, 5 of these component parts of the business model canvas. The whole thing is called the business model canvas, but these are the kind of different sections. So customer segments, you can see it over there on the right-hand side. The definition of that is identifying the specific groups of people or organizations that your business serves or will serve. And I would say the key questions within there, and again, all this information is available online and will be through our webinar notes. The key questions would be, who are your most important customers currently? Who might they be in the future? And what are their needs, their preferences, and challenges? So some really practical, straightforward questions for you to kind of really consider. So examples of that might be like particular segmented groups, such as individual, say it's artists or small businesses or large enterprises. And you can think on a kind of niche scale, a small scale, or you can think on a mass market scale, or, or both, hopefully. So that's customer segments. Another one that we can explore just now is value proposition. And this is really the crux of, why you exist as a business. And I know that with Lindsay in the last webinar, we spent some time exploring that in more depth. So you should have a really good sense of the why you exist. So the definition for me of value proposition would be, it describes the unique value your product or service delivers to your customers, solving their problems or satisfying their needs. So the key questions might be, what problems are you solving for your customers? And then what benefits or unique features do you offer your business? What do they offer? So examples of what you might fill in for that section might be quite high quality design. It might be affordability. It might be customization, ability to personalize things depending on your product. It might be convenience. It might be sustainability. And it might be a whole bunch of things. Hopefully it will be a whole range of different things. So that is the value proposition. Next, I'm going to look at revenue streams, because we've just been speaking about financial planning. And the definition for me is how your business generates income from each customer segment. So you've looked at your customer segments, and now you're thinking about who's going to pay, essentially. So the key questions might be, what are your customers willing to pay for your product or service? How do they prefer to pay? So is it a one-time payment? Is it a subscription model? Is it licensing? They're quite complex payment structures, of course, available these days. And it's important to unpack that and know that and be able to communicate and articulate that. So examples might be product sales, it might be subscription fees, it might be licensing or advertising revenue, particularly if it's an online business. So that's revenue streams. Next, I'm going to look at channels. So yeah, you can see channels there. My definition of this is explaining how your business delivers its value proposition to customers and how it interacts with them. So the key questions you might ask yourself here, and it's the little visual is a little van, so it's quite good for showing. It's about how you connect your business with your customer. So the key questions are: how do you reach your customers? Which channels are most effective and cost efficient? So examples of this might be of your channels might be online platforms, retail stores, social media, events, that kind of thing. And the last one that I'm going to look through just now is key resources. So the person with all the tools there. So for me, this definition is list the essential assets required to deliver value, reach customers, and sustain your businesses. As I say, it's the tools, it's the things that you need in place. So the key questions you might ask yourself are: what resources are critical for your value proposition, distribution, and operations? Quite simply. And if you think back to the blueprint that we did earlier, hopefully you've got a good sense of what resources you require at what stage in your business journey to reach your goal. So examples can be the physical assets, such as equipment. It can be the intellectual assets, such as patents, intellectual property, the brand, your identity, the human resources, so staffing, and any financial capacity and capital you might have. So these aspects, along with all the other elements that we're not going to cover right now, cost structure, customer relationships, key partnerships, really form the foundations of a comprehensive business model and your business plan. The business model canvas enables you to, it gives you clarity and provides alignment when strategizing and executing your goals. So I'm going to show you an example of one that we did for Creative Dundee relatively recently, last year, in fact. And we did it as a team, and we did it online because, yeah, there's wonderful tools out there that allow you to use workboards, worksheets like this, and then apply little stickies on. So you don't just have to be in the real world to have sticky notes. And it was a really good way of us really understanding if we were on track with our business goals. And I really valued that time together. And it was very informative for developing our business plan, which is now in place. So yeah, we have a 3-year business plan, which we review. Well, we review every year, but we were in the process of really refreshing our business model and our business plan. And the business model canvas was instrumental in us achieving that, in me leading that work and our team being on board with that, and our board of directors understanding all the different elements, because ultimately they want to know that we're viable, sustainable, that we are compliant. And we'll cover some of these in the next webinars. But it was I just wanted to show that it was a really valuable process for us to do this activity. So that is the business model canvas. So today, in designing your business, part 2, I'm going to recap what we've done together. So we've started with visioning, which is developing evidence of our future success and testing any assumptions we might have through wonderful tools such as prototyping and using frameworks like the Double Diamond, and like the ones that Lindsay has already introduced us to through Nesta's Creative Enterprise Toolkit and other tools out there. So we started with that. Then we went on to blueprinting. So really creating the practical steps, having that foundational document or or visual to create the practical steps to reach our intended goals. Then we went on to financial planning, considering when cash will flow in and out of our business or enterprise or our practice, and creating a viable plan to make it sustainable and realistic and manageable. And then we considered business planning. So breaking down the development of our overall business plan into small, manageable, and practical steps. And I would recommend tools like the Business Model Canvas is a really good way to do that. And I showed you some examples from my own work at Creative Dundee and other organisations. And yeah, a lot of this information can be quite sensitive, particularly in the financial planning section. But I would say ask others, ask other business leaders or peers that you know, if you can see how they plan, because we don't know until we learn from each other, really. So that's where we've got to today. Next, we're going to cover leading your business in the next webinar in the 5-part series. And we're going to be exploring your own personal leadership style and different types of business leadership out there. And I'm going to say, please do refer to the webinar guide, where you can view this complete presentation and find all the tools mentioned throughout. It's been a real joy to be with you today, and I look forward to the further sessions. It's always useful to reflect on our business processes and our planning and finances, of course, as well. So I hope that you've gained something from today. I know I have, certainly from preparing the webinar as well. Thank you very much.